The twin suns were still rising over the dusty frontier when Jace Dalton rode into the trading outpost. His old hoverhorse rattled with every movement, its metal plates shaking as if complaining about the long trip. Jace didn't blame it. The outpost was far from his ranch, and the machine was almost as tired as he was. He only came because he needed parts for his broken water rig, and the nearest vendor was here, in this loud place where traders argued from sunrise to nightfall. Jace wasn't someone who liked crowds. He preferred the wide land, the open sky, and the quiet wind. But today, there was no choice. Without water, his ranch would fail. His cattle would die. Everything he had worked for would turn to dust. So he moved through the crowd, trying to get what he needed and leave fast. But something felt strange. Huge numbers of people had gathered around the center of the market. Traders, wanderers, miners, even a few off-world merchants, all pushing, shouting, pointing. Jace frowned. He had been to the outpost many times. It was never this loud, never this full. He tapped the shoulder of a miner beside him. "What's happening there?" The miner spat into the dirt and answered, "Auction. Big one this time." Jace nodded, ready to turn away, but the miner wasn't finished. "They captured a giant," he added, "one of the Apache." Jace froze. He had heard stories about the Apache, an alien tribe living deep in the frontier. Tall, peaceful people, known for their strength and calm nature. Most settlers respected them. They kept to themselves, never caused trouble. So why would one be in an auction? And why a crowd this big? Jace asked slowly. "Because she's enormous," the miner said. "Too big for most colony farms. Traders are saying she's useless for breeding programs or labor groups. So, they're planning to sell her for processing." Jace's stomach tightened. Processing. A cold word. A cruel word. It meant she would be sold as material, not as a living being. "Isn't that illegal?" Jace asked sharply. "Out here?" The miner laughed bitterly. "Laws are only words. Coins are louder." Jace didn't want to hear more. But his feet began moving on their own. Something in him, something he respected but didn't always understand, pulled him forward. The crowd grew thicker. Voices blended into one loud roar. He pushed between people until the auction block came into view. And he stopped breathing. She stood in chains, her hands bound, her head lowered. She was taller than any person Jace had ever seen, more than twice his height. Her skin was a soft copper shade, glowing faintly under the sun. Her hair, long and braided, reached past her waist. She looked strong, powerful, like someone who could lift the front of a truck without effort. But she also looked tired. Not physically, emotionally. Her shoulders were tense. Her eyes were lowered, almost afraid to look at the crowd. Jace had seen fear in animals, in people, in soldiers, but he had never seen fear like this, quiet, silent, almost hidden behind pride. The auctioneer shouted, waving his hands. "Raya of the Apache. Height, 3 meters. 30. Weight, classified. Strength, extreme. She is unfit for breeding, unfit for colony labor, and unfit for long-term containment because of size-related resource issues. Therefore, she will be sold for processing unless a private claim is placed." The crowd murmured. Some people laughed. Others stared with hungry, greedy eyes. Jace felt a coldness in his chest. He looked at her again. Raya. So that was her name. The auctioneer continued shouting numbers, but the crowd didn't bid. They only watched, waiting for the final call. Jace realized why. She was too large for any normal use, too costly to feed, too dangerous if she ever resisted her captors. To them, she wasn't a person. She was weight, size, and trouble. Jace suddenly understood something else. Raya knew exactly what they were planning. She wasn't confused. She wasn't unsure. She was waiting for the moment they ended her fate. And that was what broke Jace's heart. The auctioneer's voice rose. Final call. Processing contract is ready. Last chance for any buyer. Cents to paid. Contract to take. I won. Contract to take. The crowd watched with cold curiosity. Jace didn't think. He didn't plan. He just stepped forward. I'll claim her. Everything went silent. Dozens of heads turned. People stared, confused, shocked. A human? Claiming a giant Apache? The auctioneer blinked rapidly, unsure if he heard correctly. What did you say? He demanded. I said I'll claim her. Jace repeated. His voice didn't tremble, even though his heart was pounding. Payment in full. And, legally. A wave of whispers spread through the crowd. He's crazy. A human cowboy? What will he do with her? He'll regret it. Jace ignored them. He looked directly at Raya. She finally lifted her head. Her eyes were large, dark, filled with confusion and fear, but also something else. A small spark of hope, buried deep, almost invisible. The auctioneer laughed nervously. Sir, this is not a normal purchase. She is alive, Jace said sharply, and that's enough. More whispers, more stares. But Jace didn't back down. In frontier law, any person could be claimed for humanitarian protection if they were being sold illegally. The auctioneer knew this. The crowd knew this. Jace knew it too. With tight lips, the auctioneer accepted the payment. Papers were signed. Rights were transferred. Chains were released. And Raya was suddenly free, but not completely. Not yet. She stood still for a long moment, staring at her wrists, as if not believing the metal was actually gone. The crowd lost interest quickly. They dispersed, laughing or complaining that the show was over. Jace stepped closer, but carefully, slowly letting her see his hands, letting her judge if he was safe. You can walk with me, he said gently. Raya didn't speak. She only watched him with eyes full of uncertainty. When she finally moved, her steps were slow, heavy. She followed him out of the market, through the dusty streets, away from the noise. People stared. Some mocked. Some stepped aside quickly, afraid of her size. Jace didn't care. He kept walking, leading her toward the edge of the outpost where his hover horse waited. She stopped when she saw it. Confused. It's fine, Jace said. It will carry us back to my ranch. Raya lowered her head slightly, looking at him directly for the first time. Why? Did you do this? Jace didn't expect her to speak so soon. He answered honestly. Because what they were doing was wrong, and because you didn't deserve that fate. Raya studied him. Her eyes were searching, as if looking for a trick or hidden reason. She found nothing. Jace wasn't lying. No one has ever chosen to help one of us, Raya said quietly. Not like this. Jace shook his head. Maybe they should start. A soft wind moved across the empty land. Raya stood tall again, still uncertain but not as frightened. Jace climbed onto his hover horse and tapped the seat behind him. You can walk beside me if that's easier, he offered. The ranch is far, but we'll make it. Raya walked. Her steps were long and slow. She didn't speak again for a long time. Jace didn't push her. He let the silence be, letting the desert wind speak instead. Hours passed. They moved over hills, across old metal fences, past abandoned stations. The world around them opened into endless grass and open skies. A place far from crowds, far from traders, far from pain. When the sun began setting, coloring the sky orange and red, Raya finally whispered, almost to herself, I thought today would be my last day. I know, Jace said quietly. And you changed that. Jace gave her a small smile. Everyone deserves a chance, Even a giantess. She blinked, surprised at his tone. He wasn't afraid of her size. He wasn't mocking her. He wasn't looking at her like she was a monster or a burden. He was treating her like a person. When they reached the ranch valley, the land stretched far and wide, rusted fences, scattered metal sheds, an old farmhouse with lights flickering inside. The ranch wasn't big or rich, but it was peaceful. A lonely place for most, but maybe not so lonely now. "This is home," Jace said softly. Raya looked at the land with quiet wonder. For the first time since the auction, her shoulders relaxed. "May I stay here?" she asked carefully, as if afraid the answer would be no. "You're safe here," Jace said. Her eyes softened again. She lowered her head slightly, not a bow, not submission, but a gesture of gratitude from her people. That night, as the stars appeared one by one, Raya stayed outside, sitting quietly near the ranch, while Jace prepared a small sleeping area inside the barn for her. She didn't need luxury. She only needed safety and space. But Jace noticed something when he checked on her. She wasn't sleeping. She was watching the stars, tracing shapes with her eyes. He stood beside her. Raya didn't look away from the sky. "I had believed I would never see another night. Now I see 2 moons again, and I wonder if my tribe sees them too." Jace felt something heavy in her words. Sadness, hope, and longing mixed together. "We'll find them someday," he said quietly. Raya turned her head toward him, her expression softening. "You saved me today, human. I will not forget it." Jace didn't know what to say. He only nodded. As the night grew colder, Raya finally lay down, her large frame curling gently beside the barn like a resting giant. Jace walked back toward his house, glancing at her one more time. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know if the traders would come after her. He didn't know how the frontier would react. But he knew one thing. He didn't regret saving her. And deep in the night, under the silent moons, Raya whispered one final thought, something Jace didn't hear. "I was marked to die today. But now, because of you, I live." Raya woke before sunrise. The air was cold, the ranch quiet, and the smell of dry grass traveled softly across the open land. She slowly rose to her full height, stretching her long arms until her joints cracked gently. It felt strange to wake in an open place without chains, without guards shouting orders, without fear of being dragged somewhere she didn't want to go. For a moment, she simply stood still, breathing deeply, taking in the new feeling of freedom. Jace stepped out of the farmhouse, rubbing his eyes as he carried a toolbox in one hand. He stopped when he saw her awake. "Morning," he said with a small smile. Raya nodded politely. "Morning, Jace." He walked closer, tilting his head up to meet her gaze. "Did you sleep at all?" "A little," she answered. "My mind was full." "I get that," Jace said. "If you're tired, you can rest more." "I am fine," Raya replied. "I am used to surviving without much sleep." Jace didn't like the sound of that, but he didn't press her. Instead, he pointed toward the broken metal tower rising beside the barn. "That water rig is what I came to fix. If it stays broken, my ranch won't last the year." Raya studied the tall structure. It was nearly as tall as her, made of rusted pipes and old cables. Some parts were bent, others disconnected completely. "May I help?" she asked. Jace blinked. He hadn't expected her to offer so soon. "If you want to. But don't push yourself. You just got out of—" "I want to help," Raya said softly, but firmly. "You saved me. I cannot stand and do nothing." Jace nodded slowly. "All right then." He climbed a ladder to reach the upper pipes. Raya watched for a moment, then simply reached out and held the entire tower steady with one hand. Jace laughed under his breath. "That makes this a lot easier." While Jace repaired the wiring, Raya lifted the heavy pipes with surprising gentleness. She moved slowly, careful not to crush anything with her strength. Jace explained which pieces were missing, and she retrieved them from the pile faster than he could name them. When he needed to weld, she blocked the wind for him with her body. When he needed light, she lifted a small lamp high above his head. The repair that should have taken 2 days took only 1 morning. When the final switch clicked and the pump began humming again, Jace climbed down the ladder with a grin. "It's working," he said with relief. Raya's eyes brightened. "You have water now." "Yeah," he said. "Because of you." Raya looked away shyly. She was not used to praise. In her tribe, strength was normal. Helping was expected. But outside her tribe, she had been treated only as a tool or a threat. Jace's kindness felt unfamiliar, but warm. "Are you hungry?" Jace asked. "I made food inside." Raya hesitated. "I do not want to take too much. Humans do not eat as much as my people." "You eat what you need," Jace said simply. "Don't worry about what I have." Raya nodded reluctantly. She followed him inside the farmhouse, ducking through the doorway. She had to kneel to fit into the kitchen, sitting on the floor while Jace placed a plate in front of her. He watched her try the food, a simple mix of grains and vegetables, and waited nervously, unsure what she would think. "It is good," Raya said after eating the first spoonful. She finished everything quietly, grateful for real food after months of captivity. Later, Jace showed her around the ranch, the old barn, the robotic cattle, the storage shed, the broken fences. Raya listened carefully, absorbing every detail. When she walked beside him, her steps were slow, careful not to shake the ground too much. They returned to the field where the robotic cattle grazed. One of the small machines malfunctioned and tipped over, kicking its legs helplessly. Jace sighed. "That one always falls. Drives me crazy." Raya walked over and lifted the machine back to its feet with one hand. It beeped happily and walked away. Jace grinned. "You're going to make this place run better than I ever did." "I, Doc." Raya looked at him, her expression soft. "I only want to be useful." "You already are," he replied. They worked together until afternoon, fixing a silo door, moving broken scrap metal, clearing the clogged irrigation lines. Raya's strength and patience made everything easier. Whenever Jace explained something, she understood quickly. Her tribe had been known for their knowledge of nature and survival. But Jace realized she also understood machines surprisingly well. As the sun lowered, they took a break near the fence. The wind rustled through the grass, and the ranch looked peaceful. For the first time in months, Raya broke the silence. "Jace, yesterday, when you claimed me, why did you act so fast?" Jace looked toward the horizon. "Because I couldn't watch them treat you like that. It wasn't right. Most humans do not interfere with alien auctions," she said quietly. "I'm not most humans," he replied. Raya studied him for a long moment. "My tribe used to speak of humans. They said humans were wild and unpredictable, but some had hearts bigger than their size." Jace laughed softly. "Not sure if I'm wild, but maybe unpredictable." Raya smiled faintly. It was the first real smile he had seen from her, and it changed her whole face. She looked less like a giant warrior and more like someone who once lived a peaceful life. But the peace didn't last. A sudden distant buzzing made Jace tense. He turned his head toward the sky. A dark shape circled far above them. Raya followed his gaze. "A drone?" she asked. Jace nodded slowly. "Not one of mine." Raya's eyes sharpened. "It belongs to the traders." Jace felt his stomach tighten. He had known this might happen, but he hoped he was wrong. How fast can they track a signal from that distance? "If it is a syndicate model," Raya said, "they already know exactly where we are." Jace cursed under his breath and ran inside the house to grab his binoculars. When he returned, the drone was already turning away. flying toward the horizon. It saw us, Jace said. Raya's jaw tightened. They want me back. Well, Jace said, they're not getting you. Raya looked down at him, shocked by how calm he was. They will not listen to you, she warned. They think I am valuable. I don't care what they think, Jace said. Raya blinked. Friend? Yeah, he said softly. Is that all right? Raya's voice dropped to a whisper. Yes, Jace, it is all right. That evening, they prepared the ranch for trouble. Jace checked the fences, reinforced the barn, locked the gates, and activated old security alarms he had never used before. Raya helped by stacking heavy barriers, moving metal crates, and scanning the land with her sharp eyes. As darkness fell, she stood near the edge of the ranch, staring into the quiet desert. Jace, she said without turning, the syndicate will not stop. They will come soon. Jace stepped beside her. We'll face them together. You could send me away, Raya said. It would keep you safe. That's the fastest way to make sure you get captured again, Jace replied. No chance. Raya lowered her head slightly. I do not want harm to come to you because of me. Nothing's going to happen to me, he said. And even if it does, I'm not abandoning you. Her eyes softened, full of emotion she struggled to hide. You speak with bravery that my people respected. I'm just doing what's right, Jace said. The night grew colder. Jace returned to the farmhouse, but Raya stayed outside, guarding silently like a protective sentinel. But she wasn't guarding the ranch. She was guarding Jace. Hours passed quietly until the ground vibrated. Raya opened her eyes instantly. Her senses sharpened. The vibration grew stronger, closer. Then she heard engines, the deep, growling kind used by desert hunters. She stood up, towering over the ranch. Jace, she called. Jace rushed outside, half awake, holding a lantern. What is it? Heavy lights appeared in the distance, approaching fast. A convoy of black vehicles moved across the desert, kicking dust into the air like a rising storm. That's them, Jace said. Raya stepped in front of him protectively. Stay behind me. No, Jace said, stepping beside her. We face them together. She stared at him. For a moment, she forgot the danger. She forgot the fear. She saw only a human who stood beside a giant without hesitation. The vehicles stopped at the entrance of the ranch. Harsh lights flashed across the field. Several armed hunters stepped out. Not weapons, capture, tools, nets, tranquilizers. They didn't want to hurt her. They wanted her alive. A woman in a dark coat stepped forward. She had the coldest eyes Raya had ever seen. Raya of the Apache, the woman said with a cruel smile. You were stolen from us. We are here to retrieve our property. Jace stepped forward instantly. She's not your property. I claimed her legally. The woman laughed. We do not recognize human ranch claims. Well, the frontier courts do, Jace shot back. And unless you want a legal fight, you'll turn around. Raya felt pride swell inside her chest. Jace was so small compared to the hunters. Yet he spoke with the voice of someone who refused to be intimidated. The woman's smile vanished. Move aside, Cowboy. The giant comes with us. Raya finally spoke, her voice strong and steady. I am not going anywhere with you. The hunters tensed. Jace glared. You heard her. The woman narrowed her eyes. She raised her hand, signaling her men to advance. Raya stepped forward, towering, powerful, unafraid. I will not be taken again. The hunters hesitated. They had expected fear, panic, not a giantess, standing strong beside a human. The woman lowered her hand slowly, realizing the situation was changing. This ranch wasn't defenseless, and the giantess wasn't alone. She turned back to her vehicle. We will return, she said, and next time, we will bring more. The convoy left, engines fading into the night. Raya exhaled slowly. Her hands shook not from fear, but from relief. Jace looked up at her. "You okay?" Raya nodded. "Because you stood with me." Jace smiled. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we prepare even more." Raya looked at him long, too long, before finally turning toward the barn. She didn't sleep. She remained awake, guarding the ranch until sunrise, knowing the real battle was yet to come.